so your first two kids, the ones that got kidnapped, how did you get them? I mean, did you get them back? Did the lady harm them? Did
No, they're good. They went where my parents arranged for them to go, but they're doing good. My
I
one daughter.
mean, like they broke the law. They kidnapped. I mean, the law couldn't help you get your kids back, or
By the time I had realized what had happened, the statute of limitations for all of it to go through had kind of ended. And because I had talked to lawyers and I was like, this is what happened. And they're like, really, there's really nothing that we can do at this point. And so it was just like, it just timing was bad. So yeah, they got adopted with, me forging birth certificates and stuff like that, because that's what my mom told me to do, and she threatened me. She threatened me, and she threatened my husband, and so they got separated. My one daughter, she went to my brother-in-law's family. So she's getting married next Monday, actually. My entire family is invited. She doesn't know, like, neither one of them knows, like, any of this transpired. Like, they think that their adoptions were legal. They think that everything was very kosher. Like, they just think that I'm a psychopath, because this is what they were told.
how old were they when they got taken?
They were a year and a half. And
Wow, so they don't remember, like they don't.
They don't have any recollection of me. And
Wow.
So she's in a nursing program. Her name is Rachel Sebald, and she will be known as Rachel Dilly by Monday. She's getting married. She's in a nursing program, and her sister, her full biological sister, is studying aquatic biology in University of A&M in Corpus Christi.
So you produced some amazing babies.
I did.
And tell us a little bit about your son that's with you now.
My son Scott, he is the joy of my life. He is the light of my life. He is, oh my gosh, like there is nothing I wouldn't do for that kid. He is ambitious. Oh my gosh, he is so ambitious. It was weird because for a long time he thought that my parents were amazing people, because I never told him what happened until much, much later. And when he read my book, he's like, Mom, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, because they weren't your villains, they were mine. And I said, I just wanted you to be surrounded by love and as much normalcy as you could possibly be surrounded by. And so I only told you the good parts of my life, because he's like, but there's so few good parts. Like, how did you make it seem like your life was so amazing? Because I said, I took the good memories from one family and I combined it with the next. And I said, I just didn't tell you that I was adopted so many times. And he's like, you're amazing. He's like, you're my hero. He's like, and he's like, I don't really have respect for Papa anymore. And he's like, well, that's okay. I said, however you're feeling about it is okay now. But I said, I just wanted you to have a normal childhood, and I wanted you to have two sets of grandparents. And I said, I tried to forgive them as best as I could, because I didn't want the stain of trauma to be on your soul.
Wow, you are so amazing. Okay, so your son is 18 right now. How old was he? He's what?
Going on 18. He'll be 18.
Going on. Okay, so he's almost 18. How old was he when he read your book?
17. Yeah, it was
wow. Okay, so yeah.
He just read it. So
wow.
It was amazing, because like he's like, I had no idea, Mom. Like, I had no idea you had gone through so much. And he's like, it makes a lot of sense now. He said to me, he's like, it makes a lot of sense now, like why you and Dad clashed so much and like why everything happened. And he's like, I don't blame you. He's like, you were a victim. And he's like, it's tragic, because he's like, your daughter, he said this to me, he said, your daughters missed out on a really great mom.
Yeah, they did.
But no, he's doing super fantastic. So he's going in for his advanced classes for high school, and then he's training to be. He wants to be an army medic, helicopter medic, to rescue people in the middle of like battle and stuff. And so he's got some really good goals, and he works right now at a towing company where he's like welding stuff and working on cars and being a mechanic. And so he's just enjoying it and actually making above minimum wage. So that's like, already like, and he's only, 17. So it's super amazing to see. Like, I feel like I can breathe a sigh of relief because I feel like the stress of like making a better legacy has happened. And it's like, okay, like I don't have to like worry that like my trauma, like I don't have to worry about my trauma like coming up and like affecting him anymore. Like he's fine and he's healthy and he's normal. And it's like, okay, I did my job as a mom, and I think that, him seeing me like write books and stories and, with his name in it, he's like, when I have kids, you have to be the storyteller. Because he's like, you tell amazing stories, and he's like, I want them to have that part of you. And so it's kind of cool to be able to, exist in this realm of like, I don't know, it's like I never became like the villain to him. And I think that's really amazing because with so many of my other, families, it was always like pointed out like, oh, like you're the villain and stuff. And it's like, no, I was just a victim of really bad circumstances. And even when I tried to like advocate for myself or something better, like it didn't happen. And I'm, that's hard, realizing like how much we don't give kids enough power. They know more than what we think they do, and so but yeah, I love my life now though. Like it's so amazing, and I'm helping people and I've got clients, and people are like asking me to speak, and I feel a little bit like awkward still because it's like I'm kind of shy sometimes, and but it's crazy to have people be like, yeah, like I want to interview you. I'm like, want to interview me? Why? Like, but it's because I guess it's like my story, so I don't see like all of the ins and outs of it like other people do when you're like observing from the outside in. But yeah, and speaking of like public health, like, I don't know if you've ever read the book. I'm sure you probably have, Tomiko, but it's The Body Keeps Score. And I think about like, when you talk about like, your health when it comes to trauma, and it's crazy how our bodies are so affected by pain. And, if I can get a little bit personal, like it was weird because like, once I kind of came into myself, it was sort of a process. I mean, people think, wow, like it must have been like really easy for her to heal and stuff. And it's like, no, like there was like a lot of stuff. But even like with my periods and stuff, and like sometimes like I have like really, really painful periods, and I'm thinking like, is this just my body's way of like, there's been so much trauma done to it, and it's like, it probably has like no way of processing itself like on its own. Like it doesn't really, like your body doesn't forget like the trauma. And I can only imagine like if I was to take my body and like put it through like a spiritual lens of like how much trauma it actually went through, like I would probably be like shocked and like awe-inspired that this is like my body. And like, but I think it's important, like even if you've gone through trauma, to like really appreciate like the gift that your body is, and like I and to cherish it, and to really take care of it. And I know that sometimes with trauma, it's either like two extremes. It's like you don't want to bathe because it's hard, for some people that have gone through my kind of trauma, like it's hard. Mm-hmm. Or they overbathe, and that can also cause problems with like pH levels and stuff. And it's like, just cherish it. Like what would you do with a baby? Like, you bathe it when it needs it, and you do it gently, and you don't overdo it, but you don't underdo it. And I think that that's really important for people to understand that there's still a gift.
I mean, just your ability to, to keep nurturing the inner child, right? Because, I mean, for most people, trauma does happen before the age of 10, and yours started very, very early. But but for you to just keep nurturing that inner child, because I mean, so much of how adults are acting out and you know, having lots of conflicts and relationships and life purpose and stuff like that, it's because they haven't really gone back and or even currently are nurturing their inner child and not even seeing that they're just like these wounded adults, but it's really the wounded inner child.
No, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I did so my friend who's trying to get like certification for this thing, she volunteered. She's like, I want to do some therapy with you for free, because she's like, I need like 3 more classes before I get my certification. And she's like, do you mind helping me out getting like my certification? Well, me being, you know, kind of naive, I didn't really dig into like what this therapy was. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I'm sure, of course, you know, I've done like all sorts of therapy, like, you know, like go for it. Like, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference in my life because I'm pretty much healed, but go for it. Oh, sometimes don't be so naive when it comes to different types of therapy. So last night she's like, she's making me do this meditation thing. And, you know, I really had thought that I had forgiven my parents for everything. And in this meditation, I'm seeing my soul and my body, and they're separated. And I'm in a coffin. And my soul is like mad at me. Like, she is like really mad at me. And I'm like telling my friend / like person, I'm like, okay, so this is what I saw. And she's like, wow. She's like, that's like really deep. And she's like, what is she so angry about? And I said, there was like a tombstone, and she's like pointing to the tombstone, and it was the date of like when my kids were kidnapped. And I was like, this is the date that she's pointing to, and she's like really angry with me. And, you know, she thinks that it's like my fault and like all of this other stuff. And so it was interesting, because at the end of this, it turned into like this ball, like this golden ball. And my counselor was like, well, can you release it? I was like, no, I can't. And she's like, well, why can't you? And I said, because if I release it, I'm releasing them. And I said, if I get rid of the pain, I'm releasing them. And I said, I can't, because I said, this has to be my burden until like the time that I die. And she's like, whoa, like that's like a huge thing to say. And I was like, yeah. I said, you know, every year that my birthday turns, I'm like, okay, like it'll be healed. Like maybe I die this year, and then like, you know, I just have to like meet like 19 more years, because that was like the age that I had them when I was married and stuff. And I think I was like 20 when I had my first one. And I was like, you know, maybe in 20 years, you know, I'll be dead and it'll be over and it'll be like cleared. And she's like, is this really how you see your life? And I was like, yep. I said, I try to make I try to live my life big and try to make the time useful. But I said, you know, I kind of tick down the years, because like that's when it's going to be, you know, over. And so eventually through this therapy, this ball came out of me, and Jesus was standing in front of me, and he's like, can you give it to me? Can you give it to me? And I was like, is it safe? And he's like, yeah, it's safe. And so I gave him this pain, and he threw it in the sea, and he's like, yep, that's the sea of forgetfulness. And
it's the sea of what? I missed that. It's the sea of what?
Forgetfulness. Because in the Bible it says that like all of our like worries and all of our sin and like all of our shame is like cast in the sea of forgetfulness. Mm-hmm. And God looked at me and he's like, see, he's like, you didn't do anything wrong. And he's like, those memories are still yours. Like all of the good memories that you've had with your kids are still yours. And he's like, I just needed to take the pain of this burden. And it's really funny, because my inner child looked at me, because she made me meditate again. I mean, this was torture. I'm telling you, this was torture. It was torture. It was torture. It was the best torture, but it was torture. She meditate again. And so my little soul is like, I'm kind of like looking at her from the pit, and she extended her hand, and she just kind of looked at me with like these like beautiful brown eyes, and she's like, well, can we continue to walk together? Because like I forgive you and I love you. And I was like, yeah, of course. And so at the end of it, and I just realized that for so long, like I was carrying this like heaviness, and not that I wasn't healed, but I wasn't paying attention to it, you know, because life changes and you become happy again. And I think that sometimes we carry pain that we don't even realize that we're carrying. And it's not until like God's like, okay, like she has nothing else on her agenda. Everything in her life is perfect right now. I'm going to let her remember this because I needed to have my soul open and I needed to relinquish it. And I think there was a lot of self-forgiveness in that, and it was really profound, and it was really good for me to understand that there was nothing that I could have done differently, and there's nothing that I could have said or that would have changed anybody's mind and stuff. And so it was really a beautiful process. And I think that sometimes trauma is like that with our bodies. Like we think that if we surrender it, that somehow like it lessens the experience, and that's not necessarily the case. You know, that we can surrender the pain and we can embrace our inner child, but we don't have to own anything that doesn't belong to us, right? And so yeah, it's been a beautiful journey. Like I can't really complain too much because, like, you know, I have really great heroes that I follow, and that I just think that life is bigger than trauma. You know, I think that there's just so much amazing stuff that's just like right around the bend. And I love the book, Anne of Green Gables, because it's the very last chapter, end of the book, last paragraph. It says, I don't know what's beyond the bend of the road, but I believe that it's the very best to come. And that's how I live my life. You know, it's like, yeah, like, you know, trauma was this really big chapter in my life, but wow, like getting to do surrogacy, getting to write a book, getting to meet all of these people, helping other people put the pieces of themselves back together, and realizing that I had a plan and a purpose, and all of this great stuff was like birthed from it. It was worth it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you are this person that you are so amazing because of what your past was. And honestly, what you just told me about this meditation experience that you did with this lady, that was torturous. You know, we do, as you know, we hold, you know, the memories of, we have cellular memories, right, of trauma, and we hold it in our bodies. And that trauma, it doesn't escape unless we reprocess the trauma in a different way and forgive it, right? We have to reframe our perception of what happened in the past so that it actually unwinds all of this energy, and then that energy can escape from your body.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, yes, the body will keep score, and it will hold on to the score until you reframe your past so that it actually heals your future, your present and your future. And you did that. You know, you did that. You were holding on to that thing, the thing that you were holding on to about the past, and then you let it go. So that is what Greg Braden is, this famous spiritual teacher who he wrote a book called Spontaneous Healing. And that's basically what you did without even knowing that that's what you said yes to.
Yeah, it's true. And, you know, I think that sometimes, you know, it's really crazy. Like when I think about like my life, and, you know, one of the things that I really, there's two books that I really highly recommend people to buy and to look into. One is The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. And I'm going to tell you a story. So there's not too many like well-known evangelists that I follow, because most of them, like, I don't know, they don't really resonate with me. But when his son had completed suicide in, I believe it was 2002 or 2001. No, maybe it was 2000. I can't remember when he passed away. Maybe it was 13, 14. I can't remember when Matthew Warren died. But one of the things that him and Kay decided to do is they said, you know, they took a full year, maybe 2 full years off of for sabbatical, where they didn't do anything. Like they were just so immersed in grief. And they said we had to move forward because we had to put purpose to our pain. And one of the things that I did that I didn't mention is that I took a hiatus. I had done 7 years of straight therapy, and I realized that there was probably still more that I needed to learn, but I didn't know where to look. And so this very still small voice said, just type in Holocaust survivors and YouTube. and I came across Steven Spielberg's Shoha Foundation. And I realized there were all of these stories. So for 7 months, I spent 10,000 hours going through their stories. And I was listening to their stories. And I started pulling out all of these keys. And I realized, like, wow, if they can do this, there's so much more possibilities for me. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing, you know? And so Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning like really changed my life. And I think of trauma like this. There was a Holocaust survivor. She was a little girl when she went to the camps, and her mom had passed away. And her mom, prior to, I guess they had been captured, and her mom, in the one dress that she had, there were diamonds that were sewn into the hem. And her mom said, keep these diamonds. You have to keep these diamonds safe because after the war, you can buy bread with them. Well, she was going up for inspection, and so she had to swallow the diamonds. And so she kept all of these diamonds through the entire, she was in the camps for, I believe, 3 years, and she kept these diamonds with her for the 3 years. She kept passing them and eating them and passing them and eating them. For 3 years she did this. And then one day, she was thinking about like the Nazis, and she's like, you know, I don't even have the ability to commit suicide on my own, and they've taken my parents, and they've taken my hair, and they've taken away my name, and all I am is a number. And she said, that's it. By God, they're not going to take my soul. And she's like, I'm going to survive. And she ended up keeping the diamonds. She had the diamonds all through the war, and she made them into a teardrop. She had them welded into like this beautiful teardrop, and they're all different shapes, cuts, and, you know, clarity. And she's like, this is like my generation of things. And this is kind of how I see trauma, is like, we're still diamonds, you know, even though we're, you know, covered in muck and, you know, dirt and whatever, we're still diamonds. And once we take the time to really see ourselves in the light of grace and the light of love and the light of forgiveness, we are like these powerful little things that we create new generations, and we create spark, and we create light, and we're just like these little flames that are just like carrying other flames to other people. And so, you know, for those of you who might be struggling with pain, grief, loss, like I understand it. Like I've lost 3 full families in one lifetime. And, you know, I've had 3 different birth certificates, and, you know, it's challenging sometimes to find your identity, to find your voice, to find out who you are, but God has given you gifts. And once you discover those gifts, like, wowie, your life is going to change, and it doesn't, the trauma just doesn't stick anymore. And there's this amazing book called You Are Special by Max Lucado. And all of these people were in this town, and they were giving stars and dots, and they would give stars like the people with amazing abilities, and they would give dots to the people that weren't so special. And one day this little wooden person meets Lucia on the road, and he says, you don't have any dots. And she's like, you don't have any stars either. He's like, how is this possible? And he's like, you got to go see Eli the wood maker. So he trots to the little hill, and he's like, hey Eli, I met Lucia. She doesn't have any stars or dots. What's her secret? And he says, because she knows that my opinion of her is more important than all of the other people in the village. So the stars and the dots, they don't stick on her. And he's like, wow. He's like, you are special. And he's like, wow, you know my name? And he's like, yeah, because I created you. And as Poncinello left, he realized that one of the dots had fallen off of him. And when you realize that your value and that your self-esteem and like every good thing that you are, all of the dots, all of the doctors saying like, you know, you're not going to make it past the age of 21 because you're going to be hooked on heroin. Or if you make it past 18, like it's going to be a miracle because she's going to end up committing suicide, or, you know, whatever the lies are that people tell you. If you follow the voice of purpose, and if you follow the voice of God, like you're going to be able to overcome it, and you're going to find, you know, the stars and the dots, they're not going to matter anymore. And you know what, truthfully, the dots, this book is just, it's just a story. You know, there's no prophecy in it. There's nothing that's determining. It's just a little bit of a history of my soul. And I prefer to just think of God, and when I get accolades, it's great. This book won an Impact Award for 2021, but it's not really the accolades or the interviews or the places that I've spoken to. It's just knowing that I am loved. I am loved by an infinite God, and I think that's where I draw strength from, because people are going to tell you all kinds of things. They're going to rub your ego, or they're going to throw mud at you, or they're going to just like you on Facebook. But if you keep your focus on, it doesn't matter the material things, the friends, whatever, it doesn't really matter, because it's who you believe yourself to be. And when you have that and you know that, then anything is possible. And if I can stand here and say that it is, then it's got to be truth, because there are so many things that were prophesied over my life, and so many things that were done, and so many things that I've survived, that I'm like, wow, like I can't even believe that this is my story, because it's miraculous.
It is miraculous. You are a beautiful, unbelievable, but definitely real miracle. I mean, it's so amazing to know you. I mean, we haven't, I mean, this is our first time like talking face to face with each other. And, you have been somebody out there like cheering me on and praying for me when, things are not going right, or when I had a friend dying. You're like, I'm going to be praying for you like every waking, every waking moment. And, I really believe that. And while I was going through this very crazy thing with my friend that was dying, I mean, I was thinking about you. I was thinking about you because you were like a flame, a lighthouse out there. And this is without me really even knowing you, but you are so real and authentic that you are 100%, genuine as a human being. And I believe that you do everything that you say you're going to do, so that's why I was thinking about you, because I knew that you were thinking about me. And we're just Facebook friends, so I mean, that is an incredible connection to make with somebody in life. And Viktor Frankl's book is one of my favorite books as well. I mean, a long time ago, I think probably when I was either in high school or I was in my 20s when I read it. And it was because I was really having a hard time with purpose, at that time. And I'm really just trying to process my own trauma in life, and really wanting to make different decisions, because I could see that if I kept making the same kind of decisions, it wasn't sustainable, and so I knew that I had to change my mind and my attitude and reframe things. And I didn't really know how to do it back then. But my goodness, I've had a lifetime, I mean, even after that point, of just terrible circumstances. And just like you, to be able to help people just like see that light at the end of the tunnel. That is what makes service, that is the purpose of service, right? Is because it provides fuel to even help us continue on the path that we're on.
Absolutely. And it is, and I will say that during that time that I did pray for you every day, and I'm one of those people that I always put prayers in, because I don't want people to think, oh yeah, like she's just praying for me, and like not. But I try to actually type out prayers, so that way people know and they can hold on to those prayers, like when they're feeling low and when they're feeling down, because I think that it's more impactful than just being like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna pray for you, but the person doesn't really know that you're praying for them. But when you actually type, and I think I did type out a few prayers for you during that
time. You did.
It's really important, because I don't ever want people to think like, oh yeah, she's just some sort of an authentic person. I don't want to say phony, but that it's just in passing or whatever. But no, like when I tell people that I'm going to pray for them, I'll take 15, 20 minutes to type out a prayer, because I know that it makes such a difference. And just having people in your corner when you're going through those really challenging times is hard. It's really hard. And, I've lost people to death as well. And I know that it's a complicated process. And, I'm one of those people that, I try to really step out of my own comfort zone and really stand in the gap for people, because I didn't really have that in my life, and I know that it's so important with other people that, you know, if you say that you're going to pray for them, or if you say that you're going to call them, like, call them, you know, don't put it off, because you don't know what they're going through. And, you know, especially during times of grief, like, it's so much more important because you feel a loss and you feel alone. And, you know, so I'm glad that I was able to stand in the gap for you.
Yeah, that was amazing. And you are amazing.